you started your podcast to, of course, learn from Monero people, but also talk to Bitcoin people about, maybe why, what they see in Bitcoin that they don't see in Monero, or vice versa. What did you find out there? Like, because it does kind of seem that there's a lot of hesitancy in the Bitcoin crowd to even recognize Monero as that actual private digital cash option that Bitcoin intended to be, or at least people thought it was.
What I found was respect for Monero for the most part, especially
Awesome.
in the earlier days. I feel like there was more respect in the earlier days of Monero when I started looking into it, respect from Bitcoiners. And then I feel like we went through a period where things got very BTC maxi, right? The whole maxi thing. And during that time, it was even these people that had formerly kind of showed respect for it were then like, ignoring it and poo-pooing it and saying it, maybe even going to the extent of calling it a shitcoin. And then I feel like now it's kind of wrapped back around and the true cypherpunks are back and looking at Monero again. But like, for example, somebody like Max Kaiser, there's a great interview you can see where I caught him in person. Right. So I did a lot of those too, because it was a good way to kind of catch people off guard. So I went to, Bitcoin conferences and whatnot, and I would just interview people. So you can, I recommend going back, checking out. I mean, it's pretty cringe. My interviewing abilities were a little cringe, but the content is amazing. And so you have Max Kaiser at that time. I don't know, this was like maybe 2017, I guess. And he's really, he really like gives a thumbs up to Monero. He's like, maybe we'll need a Monero, because you're right. Because I'm saying, but Bitcoin is traceable. And, but now if you like go and check Max Kaiser, he's like, in El Salvador, and he's like, Bitcoin only. In fact, let's make shitcoins illegal. And if you ask him about Monero, he'd probably say it's just a shitcoin. But yeah, I would say there was respect for it, especially from a technical standpoint, and the FUD against it has really, I think, evaporated and disappeared. And really, the main argument against Monero from the BTC Maxi crowd is that it wasn't the first, and that it doesn't have as big a network effect as Bitcoin. At the end of the day, that's really the only argument that's left, which is kind of a silly argument, because that's like saying Bitcoin can't take over fiat currency because currently the US dollar has a network effect. And if we all believe that, then what are we doing? We might as well give up. So, I mean, there's a lot of truth to network effect. I'm a big believer in it myself. And I kind of start to sound like a hypocrite when I'm talking to other privacy coins where they're like, whoa, but they could take over Monero. I'm like, no, the network effect. So there's a ton of truth to the network effect. But I think what differentiates Monero from Bitcoin is a much bigger gap than what differentiates Monero from other privacy coins, right? So Bitcoin, we went from a transparent ledger and to Monero, where we went to an obfuscated ledger, and that was the big breakthrough. And Monero has kind of gained the network effect as the digital cash version of Bitcoin. And now say that some other privacy coin might be a little bit more private, or this, I start to sound like a maxi in that respect, because I do believe network effect is a huge thing, unless you create something that is like 10x better or does something in a 10x different way. And I do believe that Monero has that 10x differential from Bitcoin, and that it's so much different. The obfuscated blockchain ledger that Monero has doesn't just yield privacy for the user. It doesn't just make it private. It makes it fungible. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that term other than NFTs. Mm-hmm. But we throw that term around a lot in Monero land, especially when comparing it to Bitcoin. Because of Bitcoin's traceable ledger, essentially every transaction comes with a history, and each history is unique, essentially making each Bitcoin unique. And so, unlike cash, when I take $100 bill and give it to you, it doesn't come with the history attached. You don't see who previously had it. You don't know what it was used for before. It's $100, and it's by through fiat, by mandate, you accept it as $100, no questions asked. But when I send you a Bitcoin, it comes with a history attached. And if I send you one Bitcoin from, a Virgin mining address, you might view that differently than if I sent it from, let's say, a dark marketplace as a vendor.
I sound like Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, I'll say Kevin O'Leary,
And,
Virgin Bitcoin.
there's a lot of truth to that. Kevin,
Right,
he was right about that point. He
Absolutely.
was basically pointing out the non-fungibleness of Bitcoin, and that's really the differentiating factor between the two.
You just watched a clip from episode 68 of The Next Block. If you enjoyed that clip, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend, and let us know down in the comments below what your favorite part was and what you think of Monero and privacy cryptocurrencies. If you enjoyed the clip and want to catch the entire interview, check out the video description down below for a link to the entire episode. To support the podcast even further, check out the video description down below for a link to our Algorand donation wallet. This wallet accepts most Algorand standard assets and is a great way to support the podcast. The next handful of weeks on our live show have a bunch of great guests, including Tony Edward from Thinking Crypto, Stacey Warden, the CEO of the Algorand Foundation, Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital, and so many more guests. So be sure to subscribe, ping that notification bell, and we will catch you in the next episode. Thanks.